G'day, everyone. Welcome to our very first live songwriter Q&A. I'm so excited to do this for the first time. I'm a little bit nervous about the technology, to be quite honest with you, but we'll see how it goes. So I can see so many people joining us. Hey, guys. Hey, Jessie. Hi, Lio. From all over the world. I can see people from San Diego, Turkey, Seattle, Washington. So exciting. Hey, Miriam, so lovely to see you. And Benny is going to be joining us on the chat. So he'll be moderating. If there are questions that come up that Benny can answer on the chat, he will do that. So let me just give you a little bit of a framework for how this is going to go. And if you can also just give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me and see me okay, that will fill me with a sense of confidence that the technology is working. So I have received a bunch of questions about songwriting, some just technical songwriting questions, some about sort of career as a songwriter. So what I'm going to do is I am going to work through the questions that I received through our Patreon community. So our Patreon community is a membership-based community of over 300 songwriters at this point, where we do lots of things. One of the things we do is twice a month we have a live song feedback session with Benny and I, or Benny or I, where we get to hear your songs and give you some personal individualized feedback. So at some point, hopefully Benny will pop a link into the chat. Or if not, I'll do that at some point at the end as well, but you can check that out. Great. Thanks, Stevie, and everyone letting me know that the technology is good. So I'll be answering those questions. I'm going to spend about 30 minutes answering the Patreon questions. I'll be here for about 60 minutes. Then what I'm going to do is spend 15 minutes answering a couple of questions that I received through the YouTube community post that I put up. And then in the last 15 minutes, I'll also answer some of your questions. So if there are questions that come up as I'm going, please feel free to pop them in the live chat. If they're relevant to what I'm talking about or demonstrating in the moment, I will answer them straight away. If they're kind of tangential questions, I'll bookmark them and we'll come back to them at the end. So that'll be at around 45 minutes. We'll spend the last 10 or 15 minutes doing that. So thanks, Benny. Benny's also just popped the Patreon link into the chat if you're interested in checking that out. So let's dig into it. So the very first question that I have is the should I give up question. So the full question, it's not really about giving up songwriting. This is the question. This question comes from Shaman from our Patreon community. Shaman says, when do I know I should give up on my current song and move to the next? For example, I've been working on a song for several weeks, trying various different rhyme schemes, chord choices, melodies, verses, chorus, etc. As a result, I'm feeling stuck on this song and I can't decide when I should stop spending time on this song or start writing a new one. Or is it okay to work on several songs at once? Great question. And there's actually two questions in this question. So one question is the last bit there. Is it okay to work on several songs at once? And then the other question that I'm seeing here is really just about like an individual song, being stuck on an individual song, when to just give up on a song and move on. And it's a really relatable question. Let me answer the second question first, because I think that it helps feed in to the first question a little bit. So that question is it okay to work on several songs at once? The answer to that question is unequivocally yes. And not only is it okay to be working on several songs at once, it's highly advisable to be working on several songs at once. How many songs? Look, everyone has their own individual preferences. I find it really helpful to be working on about 3 or 4 different songs at once. 7 or 8 is a bit much. I mean, I'd only really be working on 7 or 8 songs or more if I were like in the production phase of recording an album and I was kind of bringing all the songs together and, you know, tweaking them with that, you know, deadline coming up. But in a general kind of ongoing sense, 3 or 4 songs is good. And there's really good reasons to be working on multiple songs at once, good creative reasons. When we're working on one song, and kind of working on it, there's a lot of problem solving that happens in songs. And there's interesting kind of cognitive stuff that happens when we're in a problem solving modality. When we're just intensely focused on one thing, we really activate our prefrontal cortex. I know it's like the neuroscience of creativity, but when we're actively problem solving, we activate the prefrontal cortex, which is one way of thinking, but it's not all the ways of thinking. And certainly when we're doing creative work, we need to access different ways of problem solving. But when we're really stuck on something, that's when this bit activates the prefrontal cortex. When we get stuck, it's often because that cognitive process has ceased to be sort of like functional for the problem we're trying to solve. Actually putting that song aside and working on something else, it's funny, you're like working on that song, but you're actually problem solving the first song in a very like lateral way. So, we're using our prefrontal cortex or whatever other processes working on a different song, but in actually kind of just removing ourselves from that kind of miasmic way of problem solving on something we feel stuck on, we're kind of activating different neural networks that absolutely help us solve the problem in song A by working on song B. So it's really, really helpful. And I find 3 or 4 songs at a time is really, really useful. The other thing that does is it takes the pressure off any one song. I think we put so much pressure on every individual song to be like the song or something like that. But, when you're working on multiple songs, you just take the lid off that bit of pressure that can actually get in the way, I think, of making true creative, breakthroughs and solving creative problems in that way. So, yes. Definitely work on multiple songs. Let me come to the other part of your question, Shaman. It is, what do you do when you're stuck on one song, when that hasn't worked? And really the question of like, should you give up? Should you give up on a song that you're stuck on? When talking about working on an individual song, at the beginning of your songwriting journey, and I would define the beginning of your songwriting journey as, the first 50 to 100 songs that you write, I would be very cautious about giving up on songs, because one thing you don't want to do is train yourself to be an unfinisher. The other way to say that is what you want to do in that kind of, let's think of the first 50 to 100 songs as your like training phase, almost as a songwriter. You want to train yourself to be a finisher. So on the one hand, we're working on the songs themselves, but on the other hand, we're working on ourselves as songwriters and building our tools, our processes, our methods, our capacities, and our confidence as songwriters. And it's actually really important to build the kind of muscular strength. I mean, that's just a metaphor, but like muscular strength as a songwriter to know that you can finish a song even when you don't love it. And it's actually by doing that, like working out at the gym. When you go to the gym and you work out your muscle groups, that's not the point. Like the point of going to the gym is not to go to the gym. The point of going to the gym is to make your body strong so that you are fit, flexible, and capable of moving around and doing ordinary things in the everyday world, right? It means you're fast at running for the bus. It means you can, pick up your grandchildren when you're 75. It's everything else that's the point. I mean, maybe there is some like dopamine and chemical reasons that make the gym. I'm thinking about this a lot at the moment because I've been going to the gym. So there are other reasons why we go to the gym, but you understand my point. Coming back to songwriting, we want to develop the skill set of finishing songs. So with that said, in the real world of songwriting, I think about, Benny and I very recently did a sort of intensive weekend of songwriting. And in that 2 or 3 days, we worked on probably 6 or 7 songs. Among those 6 or 7 songs, 2 or 3 of them are really good and they're worthwhile us continuing to work on. There are other ones that didn't kind of like spark the way the 2 or 3 does. So those are the songs that have the question of like, do we sit down and keep working on them, or do we give up on them and move on? When I really think about those songs, part of my response is, I think we just didn't give enough time to those songs. I think a lot of them are worthwhile sitting down and continuing on. And I do think that a lot of the time with songs, it's easy to give up too soon. If I'm not like feeling and the spark didn't happen, you give up too soon. It's often when you just kind of work through that a little bit further and sit with a song and keep working at it, that creative breakthroughs can happen. So don't give up too soon. And I would certainly say in your training phase that actually finishing songs is a more important outcome than the quality of the song itself. So let me also just give you some general tips on getting unstuck with a song. If you are feeling like you're stuck on a song, go outside, go for a walk, go for a run, walk into a place of nature, doing sort of bilateral physical movement, and one where you actually increase the oxygenation to your brain, um, really, really helps. It helps problem solve in a lot of different ways, similar to what we were talking about before with working on other songs. Um, Another way that you can really work through a feeling of stuckness is to do some immersive listening, which is to say, sit down and listen to some music. Listen to music both in the genre or style that you're working in. I find that really helpful. And also just listening to other music that you love. In other styles and genres, again, it's that like approaching it laterally can really help. So to me, immersive listening can really help. And it's almost impossible, I find, as a songwriter, if I'm working on the songs and then I sit down and for 30 minutes, I'm listening to music, it's almost impossible for me not to have ideas that help me work on that song. So that's another tip. Another tip, a really practical tip for me, if I'm stuck on a song and it's kind of halfway there and I'm like, oh, how do I get this towards the end point? A very useful tool is creating a song map. Now, a song map can be a lyrical song map, which is to say it kind of helps you understand where the story of the song is going to go. And often understanding that can really kind of help musical decisions as well. So we have a video on the channel called, the thumbnail is The Songwriting Formula. Please check that out if you haven't already, and maybe Benny can find a link to that video and post it in the chat. That is really about song maps. There's another video called The Map Method. The thumbnail says The Map Method, and that's also about song maps. A song map, which we haven't made a video about yet, but maybe we will in the future, can also be like a structural song map. So making a decision about song form can be really helpful to moving a song forward. It's like seeing the song as a whole shape rather than it only is what it currently is and I don't know what else it's going to be. If you actually make a decision about song form with what you've got already, that can help. It can create a bucket. I think of song form like a bucket. You're giving yourself the bucket, and then all you have to do is like fill the bucket with the rest of the song. So a song map, a structural decision can really help. Always remembering that just because you make that decision doesn't mean you're contractually obliged to stick to that. But I definitely find that often just making a decision helps the next decision get made. It's like decision making, action creates action. You make a decision and then the next decision becomes clear. And when that decision becomes clear, often you can revise whatever it was that your first decision was. I know that sounds complex, but it's just this idea of like, just decide on something. And it's almost this concept of putting limitations on your work. Actually imposing limitations can drive you towards the end point, and it can help clarify. It's like sometimes we get stuck because there's so many different options. We don't really know where this could go. There's so many options of where it could go. Just making a few limiting decisions can help that clarity emerge. So that's another one. Another huge tip for absolutely everyone at any stage of your songwriting life: deadlines really help. Having a deadline that you're working towards is just one of the most powerful psychological motivators for getting work done. Deadlines and accountability. So accountability, the best kind of accountability that I have found in my entire life is having a group of songwriters, and we have songwriting projects. We have a song prompt that we're working towards, and we have a deadline that's either every week or every 2 weeks. So that was extremely powerful for me when I was part of songwriting groups and joined songwriting groups. And that is the reason why Benny and I created songwriting groups that anyone can join. So registration is currently open for our next songwriting group, the first songwriting group of 2024. That will start on January 29th. The deadline to join is January 27th. And Benny can post a link to the songwriting groups that is on our website. And anyone can join. So the nature of those songwriting groups is they are 8 weeks. I will send you a songwriting prompt every 2 weeks. You are put with a group of no more than 8 other songwriters from around the world, and everyone writes a song to that prompt. And I have had so many people in those songwriting groups say that, just being a part of the songwriting group is kind of like the only reason why they wrote the songs that they wrote. And many people who had been writing 3 or 4 songs a year, writing, in excess of 20 songs a year. So wow, deadlines and accountability are absolutely huge. And thank you to those people who are giving other ideas in the chat. And please, if you have things that work for you, to unstick yourself from sticky songs, please pop them in the chat. That would be so helpful to everyone. There's just so much wisdom in the community of songwriters. I've got my ways of doing things, but other people will have other ideas too. So thank you for that question, Shaman, and I hope that was helpful to others. Next question. So this one's a musical question, so I'm going to demonstrate a few things here. So this question comes from Georgia in the Patreon community. Georgia says, I'm struggling to make a pre-chorus distinctive, something to build up to the chorus or something that works like a nice bridge to connect the 2 parts, verse and chorus. Are there any tips to overpass this block? Oh, Georgia, yes, there are tips to overpass this block. I'm actually going to post a link into the chat there. So that link that I've just put there to the YouTube channel is to a playlist of videos that we made a little while ago that's all about writing pre-choruses. But I'm going to demonstrate a few things about pre-choruses. I love talking about pre-choruses. I know they seem like, why? They're like the lesser section of a song. But actually talking about pre-choruses is actually a way to talk about big musical concepts, all the musical concepts. It's funny, every time we talk about pre-choruses, it's actually the way to discuss principles of contrast, principles of spotlighting, ideas of tension and resolution. So there are these much bigger principles of songwriting and composition that actually emerge out of a discussion of this sweet little section called a pre-chorus. So I really want to demonstrate it, and I want to demonstrate it through example. So what I'm going to do is play a little bit of the Adele song, Someone Like You. And then what I'm going to do is discuss some of the ideas, both chord things that are happening and melodic things that are happening in the pre-chorus that really help create a simmering tension that allows the chorus to explode, allows the emotionality, that peak emotional moment is really amplified because of the pre-chorus. And really, to me, that's why a pre-chorus is actually so important, because if it does its job right, it is kind of serving up the chorus. One thing to understand about the pre-chorus is the pre-chorus is not merely the bit before the chorus. It's also not merely the bit that connects the verse to the chorus. That's a misunderstanding of the function of a pre-chorus. A pre-chorus is really the bit that creates tension before the chorus. If it's not creating tension, it's not doing its job, look, I have heard and both written songs where the pre-chorus is sort of half doing that job and it's still sort of a pre-chorus. But to me, that's a really good understanding of a pre-chorus. It creates tension before the chorus. So let's hear this Adele snippet, and I'll do my best to play it for you. I don't want to sing too loud. And then I'll discuss it. Okay, so we'll see how we go. And I'm just going to sing half the verse so that we can get into the pre-chorus. All right, so I heard that you're settled now, that you found a girl and you're happy now. I heard that your dreams came true, that she gave you things I didn't give to you. Pre-chorus. I could think of man another blue uninvited, but I couldn't stay away. I couldn't fight it. I hoped you'd see my face and that you'd be reminded that for me It isn't over. I'm gonna find someone like you, etc. So then we go into the high chorus. Okay, so let me just talk quickly about chords, because there are some important chord things that are happening in this song that are wonderful examples of the general principles of how your chord choices can help you write a pre-chorus. Go back to the verse quickly. The verse starts on the chord A major, key of A major. So here is this big A major chord in the key of A major. Whenever we're inside a key, major or minor, there is one chord that is like the queen chord. She rules it all. She is the goddess. She is the center of the universe. And that chord is called the tonic, which is to say, if I'm in the key of A major is the tonic. She is queen. She is goddess. The chords in the key, it's not a democracy of chords. No, it is a monarchy of chords. There is one queen, and every other chord is there to serve the queen chord. So, the chords are not all built equally. Queen is the ruler of them all. And if we kind of think musically what that means, the A major chord in the key of A is the home chord. It's the chord of most stability, right? When I play other chords in the key of A, right, if I go, and then I play A, it's only by playing A that you feel any sense of resolution, right? So A is the chord of most stability, the chord of most resolution, the home chord. It's the biggest chord. Think of it as the sun at the center of a solar system. Every other chord in a key is there to create some kind of tension. It creates some kind of journey, right? So I start on home in this song, and then she kind of moves on. This chord is moving us away from home. And then I play the F sharp minor. This chord is still away from home. Ooh, the D major chord. I'm still away from home. Now I'm back at home. Now it comes back to that central point, that home chord, point of stability. So then I go into the pre-chorus, and I want everyone, and feel free to pop it in the chat, to identify what chord is not present in this pre-chorus. Ready? Here we go. I guess it came out of the blue uninvited, but I couldn't stay away. I couldn't fight it. I hoped you'd see my face and that you'd be reminded that for me, it isn't over. I played E major, F sharp minor, D major. Like, what chord is not there? I am going to preemptively say yes to everyone that is putting in, thank you, Sophia, Matt, Uneuphoric, Angela. Angela, no. Yes, you're correct, Angela. G is not in the chord. I mean, there are actually about 45 chords that are not in that progression. But in the key of A, we don't have A in that pre-chorus. This is crucial because this is a tonal strategy. This is not accidental. This is not random chords trying their best to form a chord sequence, or rather to form a song form, to create a pre-chorus. She is deliberately avoiding the tonic chord in the pre-chorus. Because what's a pre-chorus? It's the section that creates tension before the chorus. What is one super effective way to create tension? Avoid anything that creates stability or resolution. And one of the most stable, resolved things you can do in any key is to play the tonic. So she's avoiding the tonic. We don't have that stable chord. And then what is the first chord of the chorus? You got it. It's A. It's the tonic. That tonic of that moment is amplified by